Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Our phone lines are open this morning. If you're watching the live version of the show that happens at 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern Time, you can get your question queued up. You'll be the first caller in the queue. 610-363-1110 is the phone number, and you can ask questions about whatever kind of financial issue is on your mind. Are you thinking about retiring? Are you worried about inflation? Are you wanting to start to invest for your family's future or for your retirement? You can call us and ask those questions. 610-363-1110. And right now, you would be the first caller in the queue. Partners of the ministry, we do have a partner conference call today. Noon Central Time is the time. You should have gotten an email alert yesterday with the phone number to call in. If you're a partner and didn't get that alert, just log in to your partner side of the website, go to the conference call page, and all of the information to dial in will be right there at your fingertips. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the latest DOGE headline and how that translates into a financial issue for you personally. And we're also going to get encouragement from Proverbs 28:8. So wanted to remind you, or just to let you know, that we did come within hundreds of dollars of meeting our goal for for helping preborn with their Heartbeat campaign. Our goal was to raise $21,000 in a week. We raised $20,612. So if you want to help us reach that goal, I'm sure they won't mind a few dollars coming in late. So if you've got $388 to send to Preborn Ministries today, that'll get us to our goal of $21,000. And Preborn was very excited that you all are excited about helping them continue the good work that they're doing and fighting back against the darkness of abortion.
And, you know, Shana, I can't help but just be so happy with how much Preborn loves the Financial Issues family. They're on some pretty big networks, and they seem to value us. I don't want to speak out of turn, but they seem to value us more than any of those. And that's like Tucker Carlson and Daily Wire, so it's pretty awesome.
Glenn Beck. Glenn
Beck. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. DOGE Dividend. Who wouldn't like to see a $5,000 refund on the garbage that the unelected bureaucrats have been wasting our tax dollars on? Well, that would be nice. But, a user on X suggested that if DOGE achieved its goals of cutting $2 trillion in federal spending, that a $5,000 tax refund might be sent to 78 million tax-paying households in the U.S., and he sort of labeled it that DOGE dividend, and then use the rest to pay down the national debt. Well, Elon gave sort of a head nod to the idea and said that he would run it by the president, and then Trump addressed the idea in this video. Watch this.
There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the DOGE savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible, Elon. So many billions of dollars, billions, hundreds of billions, and we're thinking about giving 20% back to the American citizens and 20% down to pay back debt and pay down debt, which is, if you look at value, if it were a real estate balance sheet, the debt is tiny, but we still want to pay it down.
Yeah. So, Elon, I think, was quick to point out the reality of the situation, in a couple of interviews that he did, because we really haven't actually saved or recovered any of that money yet. What do I mean by that? Well, we've only been able to attempt to put a Band-Aid on the gushing head wound that the U.S. Treasury has. DOGE has found somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 billion of what they're calling savings so far, and their lofty goal is $2 trillion, and even Elon Musk admits that may be a little bit lofty, at least in short order. So when the government is spending, which is the case right now, has been spending $2 trillion a year more than it brings in, there's nothing yet to return to the people. It means that we're only borrowing less. It's sort of like, as an individual making $40,000 a year while spending $60,000 and paying $10,000 a year in credit card interest, but then thinking that you're making headway and moving into the black because you successfully canceled your $5 a month Netflix subscription because you don't want to watch that garbage anymore. Well, it doesn't, the math doesn't quite work yet, but I think we're moving in the right direction for sure. Elon is clear about his mission. He told Sean Hannity in an interview, "That's why I'm here." He knows that the U.S. must solve the deficit, and he said, "It's not optional. America will go bankrupt if this is not done." That's a message that this ministry has been pounding the table on for more than a decade. So I'm so glad to see that it has become a rallying cry by those who are actually working on behalf of the benefit of the American people. So do I think we should bank on getting that $5,000 check anytime soon? No, I think this is more 4D chess. So when people, and what I mean by that, when people pay taxes, we come to this place of acceptance that the money that we pay in isn't really ours anymore, right? We're sending it to the government to fund the government. We do that hoping, but really not believing that the government will do that in a very efficient and manner that represents good stewardship. But when you start to look at the reality that if the government doesn't spend it and sends it back to you, it becomes yours again. And I think that's what Trump is trying to get the American people to understand. By saying this, by giving Americans the notion that, hey, if the government doesn't spend it, you get it back, or we don't take it from you in the first place, it makes Americans care again about how the government is stewarding our money. You know what? The same is true. The same concept is true with investing. When we realize that as a shareholder, when we buy shares of a company, we become an owner or a shareholder of that company. We still retain the stewardship responsibility over the money that's invested. We are still going to give an account for how that money is handled. And we are entitled to our share of the company's profit when we become an owner of the company by buying shares of the company. When we really get that revelation, we begin to care less about what the stock price is doing on a daily basis, and we begin to really care about what the company is spending money on. So, if I'm going to invest in a company, would I rather them use the money, the profit that they make, to be spent on gay pride parades and festivals and DEI programs? Or would I rather the money to be invested in growing the market share of the company, of improving the quality of the product or service that's being made, in hiring the best people to do the job that are going to be productive, that are going to increase the value of the company over time, because that's what's going to make the stock price go up over time. DEI and promotion of the LGBTQ false narrative does not translate to a positive bottom line. Good stewardship of company resources does fall to the bottom line. And when there is a bigger bottom line, and that bottom line, the value is returned to me as an owner or a shareholder, or to you when you invested in a company, me or you, we get to choose which kingdom we want to invest that profit in. Do we want to invest the profit that is returned to us in the kingdom of darkness, funding abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ agenda? Do we want to sponsor gay pride parades? Do we want to give money to Planned Parenthood? Or would we rather invest in the kingdom of light, in sending missionaries around the world to spread the gospel, to put clubs into schools, elementary schools, so that kids get to hear the truth of the gospel, to give money into organizations like Preborn who are pushing back against the darkness of abortion? Well, I know the answer for me. I hope that you consider the answer for you and you'll choose biblically responsible investing. You can find out more about biblically responsible investing and our strategy to help you implement it at financialissues.org. Stick around. We're taking a break, but we'll be back with more Financial Issues.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Kids need the hope of Jesus. There's so much loneliness, brokenness, isolation, and bullying. Now, you and I, we have the opportunity to do exactly what Jesus said, to go and make disciples, right where they are, right inside their public school. The Lord has been building the impact of Crossroads Kids Club, and we ask for your help to pursue a vision of greater national expansion.
To join us, visit reachourschools.com. That's reachourschools.com.
Hearing Jesus say, "Well done," how to secure your rewards in heaven. Don't you want to be sure that when you get there, that you're going to have the best life forever? And that best life forever is being able to access the plethora of wonderful, escalating rewards that are elucidated throughout the book of Revelation to those who overcome. Well, that's what the book's about, friend.
Order your copy of Hearing Jesus Say Well Done today on Amazon and start living for what truly matters.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us today. We've got a caller in the queue, so we're going to get right over to Randy. Hi, Randy. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, Shannon. My question has to do with MA54 and MA5, and I'm looking at that category as putting pretty much all of those two into that, to the amount I'm allocated to use for that full category. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think I know which ones you're talking about. If one of you guys can look up the symbols and tell me in my ear to make sure that I know which one he's talking about, but I can speak conceptually about that. And now, Randy, your question was, say it again.
Well, I was looking at these two, and I was looking at splitting them, but using up my entire use that category at my entire amount that I can put in that category with those two holdings.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
4 and 5, and the reason I was just, there's other options for for materials, but I'm thinking that I was earlier. I called you a couple of times last year about this gold, and I never did invest any. And of course, you weren't advising at the time, and I think now you feel it's time to, from what I read, it's time to maybe jump into that.
Yeah.
So
I'm fine. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm totally fine if you want to use the allocation for your material sector and just devote it all towards those two. And that's really the reason that we sent out that big sell alert this week, because, so we have brand new partners that are just starting to build, and they're looking at the buy list, and but we also have partners that have maybe been partners for 10 years or more, and they built their portfolios 10 years ago, so they have other companies in there, and maybe they don't have any room in the material sector. So in the alert that we sent out, we said, we do have a fair amount of conviction in these things that we've added to the buy list. Now there's more. If you look in the material sector, there's more that is that are related to the metals part of it than just the broader material sector. So, as someone who implements the financial issue strategy, I've built hundreds of portfolios, so I know exactly what the partners are going through. I know what the new partners are. I know what's on the new partners' mind because I'm building new portfolios. I know what's on the minds of the old partners because, I have a lot of portfolios that I manage that way. So if we have a lot of conviction on something, I think the partners tend to follow suit and are going to want to add those things. So we went through our material sector and we looked and we found the weakest companies. And we do have a long-term strategy still. So, even though there have been a number of sales that have come out, we're looking at how to manage a portfolio. So a buy and hold strategy is never should be a buy and ignore strategy. So things change in the market, things change in politics, things change in the world of finance, things change, a lot, and they've changed a lot over the last 5 years or so. And so when we have something that has a lot of conviction, we want to give some guidance to the partners as to, hey, if you believe in, you want to add some of these new positions, here are some things that we think don't necessarily have as bright of a future as we thought that they did when they were originally added to the buy list. So maybe it's time to rotate out of some things and into some different things. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater or becoming a short-term trader or anything like that, but it's just good management of a long-term portfolio.
Yeah, that's basically what I did. I got rid of what I was in under materials, and that's why I'm thinking that I just want to. I'm feeling pretty strong that 54 and 5 are going. 54 and 5 are going. Going to be up and coming, along with just precious metals. Period. Because I know, looking at what it's done over the past year, and I'm glad you did this, that you managed to open this door for us, because I was hoping that you would do something like this. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that it made sense to just put all, fill that entire category up with these two particular ones I've chosen.
Yeah. It's something that we've been discussing in our analytical meetings for more than 6 months now. So okay. It's not a rash decision. I don't think that ever happens here at Financial Issues. We're very methodical. We're very thoughtful about the things that we add and take away and issue sell alerts on. So, Randy, I think you're going to be very interested in the conference call today. So I hope that you can make the partner conference call. I do plan on talking about this little pivot in strategy, this small pivot, and some of the reasons behind it that I'm really only going to say to the partners. So if you can't join right at noon Central Time, the recording will be up on the website for a couple of weeks. So you're a partner, and this is a topic that interests you, like Randy, you're going to want to hear it today. Thanks for calling, Randy. Great question.
I definitely will. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely be watching that today. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Randy. God bless, brother.
All right.
Great.
What do we got? What else do we have?
Yeah, we got a couple questions here, Shana, that came in on social media over the last few days. Let's get to this first one. This is Sherry. She's actually a listener from Rumble. So, Sherry, thanks for finding us there on Rumble. We appreciate that growing audience. Says, I'm a partner, but I'm asking on behalf of my 26-year-old, what are the options for him to invest in a non-retirement account? What would you have for that, Shana?
Well, the sky's the limit, really. I mean, if you open a discount, or if he opens a discount brokerage account, he will likely be able to invest in just about any stock, publicly traded stock or company that he wants to invest in. He also has many mutual funds at his disposal. He also has lots of ETFs. Now, I hope that you're teaching him all about biblically responsible investing and how important that is, that it's a way to honor God in the way that we invest, that we don't, it helps to prevent us from funding those dark agendas. But once, that's the most important thing to convey to him as you're teaching him how to invest. A good place to start might be with one of the ETFs. I don't know how much money he has to invest, but I would assume it's probably not $1 million or, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But, the scripture speaks a lot about little by little wealth grows. And so I think it's a great thing that you start with little, because your knowledge is probably little in the beginning too. And the more experience that you get with investing, the more you start to learn about everything. I think, you have more to invest as well, because you've started a discipline of putting money back into an investment account, and so your wealth is growing, your knowledge is growing, and the knowledge is going to help to grow that wealth as well. So one ETF that he could look at would be ETF 1. That is a large mid-cap fund, and it's going to give him exposure to about 300 different individual companies inside that one investment. The other one that he could look at would be ETF 4. That is a more aggressive option, and then also perhaps include ETF number, I believe it's number 6. Give me just a second to look it up. No, not number 6. It's number...
Is it number 2, Shana?
No, not number 2. It is number 3.
There it is. Nice.
1, 3, and what was the other one I said? 4.
1, 3, and 4, yep.
1, 3, and 4. So those are going to be some great places to start. Just those 3 holdings will give him a very, very diversified portfolio. Once he establishes kind of a base, he can sort of expand out and start to look at other stocks that are on the buy list. And being young like that, I would look in the technology sector. So hopefully you're going to gift him a financial issues partnership too, so that he can follow along with the strategy.
Awesome.
All right.
Shana, we're coming to the end here. I know we have a stewardship verse to get to as well.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it does.
Stewardship verse today comes from Proverbs 28:8. Whoever multiplies his wealth by interest and profit gathers it for him who is generous to the poor. Well, gaining wealth through unfair or exploitative means that, especially if it's done at the expense of the poor, will not last. That's what the scripture is telling us. Ultimately, wealth will end up in the hands of someone who is generous and just, because that is God's sovereign will, and it's how he accomplishes his work in the earth. I think that we are seeing these things play out these principles play out right before our eyes with what's going on with DOGE. Yesterday I talked about some of the shenanigans and some of the funny things that Elon is uncovering as he goes through the Social Security Department. But dirty deeds that have been done in the dark, or that your sin will find you out. Those who are dependent on Social Security income come pretty close to meeting the definition of the poor in our country. ministry in Scripture. So to think that their livelihood could have been potentially threatened by the greedy people who would skim off of a trust fund that they have been trusted to safeguard for the poor is despicable. So thank God for people like President Trump and Elon Musk, who have been blessed tremendously in legitimate financial ways. They have used their gift, talents, and abilities to produce wealth. You know, they've used the God-given skills, talents, and abilities and turn that into wealth, as opposed to the career politicians and bureaucrats who have enriched themselves by exploiting and abusing our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And this just warms my heart. Folks, make sure that you tune in for Bible study tomorrow. Go to our website and look under resources to tune in and join Seth with Bible study. He's going to be in Daniel 2, 44 through 49. Stick around. We'll be back with more financial issues.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. I Googled places to abort. We drive there, and as soon as we get there, I open the door, and the first thing that I see is a bunch of Bible verses in the walls. They gave me a little counseling session, they gave me the pregnancy test again, and they do an ultrasound. And that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We decided with my boyfriend at the time, which is now my husband, to continue the pregnancy together. We started coming to the classes, doing our homework, getting counseling together. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Pharrell came to Crossroads as a fourth grader. His name had been brought to my attention by the school principal. She was concerned about the direction he was heading.
I remember I wasn't the best kid. I got into trouble a lot.
He became a very active part of Crossroads Kids Club.
Mr. Engel, he was the leader that really impacted my life in so many ways. I honestly didn't want Crossroads to end.
We would invite all the students to come to our youth group here at Waterfront.
I felt God saying, come on, come to me. It felt like I was set free.
And I'll never forget the day when we had the privilege and the honor to baptize Pharrell.
I hugged Mr. Engel. I don't know if he understands. I'm truly, thankful to have him through the whole journey. If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I wouldn't be a follower of Christ.
Help reach more kids like Pharrell with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachourschools.com.
Folks, welcome back to Financial Issues. It's been a fun show today and been an active one on the chat for sure. And I appreciate all of you joining us on the chat. Also appreciate those of you watching on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. It's great to have you. Also, if you're just listening, maybe you're in your car on your way to work this morning and you're listening to the program, welcome to you. If you're watching, of course, welcome to all of you there also. We do have a conference call today, folks. I want to remind you, 12 noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You do not want to miss it. Shana's going to give some great insight. And we have gotten a lot of questions about this. It's not a change in course in our strategy, but perhaps a little bit of a different element to it, one that we have not seen for quite some time in the history of our ministry. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm excited to hear what she has to say. So you're going to want to make sure to join for that. Obviously, if you can't make it, if you've got another commitment, if you got work, it will be posted on the partner side of the website under conference calls. If you're not a partner and you want to become one, you can do that right now. And if you do that before 1 p.m. Eastern Time today, you can join that conference call as well. So that's great stuff. Speaking of social media, Sam, we did have a follow-up question, I know, from Sherry. Shana had just answered Sherry's question in that last segment. And then Sherry was asking a follow-up. I assume that's on Facebook.
Actually, no, it's on Rumble.
It's on Rumble. That's right. It's on Rumble.
As our Rumble audience continues to grow. Yep. Well, she was essentially saying, well, in terms of searching for cells on the cell list, why don't we have an actual search tab? She's saying it's kind of difficult to figure out what those cells were. And I would say, Seth, she's kind of in luck, isn't she?
She is. Yeah, Sherry, we're really excited. This is going to be one of the, God willing, one of the features on our new website. And I'm very, very excited for that. I know you all have been waiting patiently for that. We're in the final stages of it, and it's almost ready. So we're super excited. That's going to be part of that. Just making it a little bit easier for you to be able to search for stocks based on their FISM code, ticker symbol, all that sort of thing. So once the new website's out, you'll be able to have that feature there. It's a great question.
And someone helpfully followed up to her and said, by the way, you can do this on any page, but it also works for ours. If you hit Control F on your keyboard, you can just type in anything you want in the upper corner of your computer, and it will search the whole page for what you're looking for.
That's great. That's why we have people like Sam who know a lot of stuff about tech, and Sam and I are in the same generation, so I should know about tech stuff. I don't, because I think I maybe have a little more of the older generations in me where I'm just inept with this stuff, but Sam knows that. Control F, right, Sam? That's the magic buttons to press.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes. It's a very magical button. Get you wherever you need to go.
Awesome. Sherry, thanks for that question there. I hope that can be helpful for you. And Sherry, I do hope that you will join on the conference call today as well. It really is a great time, folks. If you want a little more information than we're able to give on the live show, that's mostly for time constraints, truthfully. Shana's able to go into a little bit more depth about the strategy. Since it's partner specific, we don't have to speak in code. We can talk freely about the different stock symbols and different things like that. So it'd be great for you to join today if you're a partner with the ministry. And again, if you can't join, you can listen to it later, but it's always better to join live, I think. So, all right, Sam, let's get back to a topic that Shana had teed up in that first segment there. This interesting DOGE dividend. I find this fascinating. What are your thoughts on this, Sam? Just to kind of start this off.
I really like this idea, although I'm kind of torn about it too. So to recap, this guy on X, he's a CEO. He proposed this idea. His name is James Fishback. He said the plan would be to take, let's see here, 20% of the savings found by DOGE and then send it back to Americans as a form of tax refund. He says each American household should receive about $5,000 in a sort of rebate if DOGE does achieve its goal of cutting $2 trillion. Elon Musk responded to him. He said he'll check with President Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, as we played earlier in the show, says he's kind of open to the idea. Although Elon Musk says the ultimate goal, of course, is still to cut the deficit. He says his goal is to get about $1 trillion out of the deficit. That's something he talked about with Sean Hannity earlier this week. Here he is.
The overall goal is to try to get $1 trillion out of the deficit. And if the deficit is not brought under control, America will go bankrupt. This is a very important thing for people to understand. A country is no different from an individual in that if an individual overspends, an individual can go bankrupt, and so can a country. And the massive waste, fraud, and abuse that has been going on, which is leading to a $2 trillion a year deficit. That's what the president was handed on Jan 20th, a $2 trillion deficit. It's insane.
For this fiscal year.
We inherited.
All right, Seth. So with that massive deficit in mind, the question is, does handing out these rebates, this tax refund, kind of defeat the whole point of DOGE? Right. Not the whole point, but does it undercut it in some way? Because you're using this money that could have gone to paying down the deficit even more to give it back to the people, which admittedly is a great political idea, but is it a great financial idea? Is it fiscally responsible for the Trump administration to do this?
It's a really good question, Sam. Really, really interesting question. We're were talking about this off the air yesterday. The first thought I had, folks, when I heard this was, this sounds very similar to the COVID stimulus checks that we got a couple of years ago, which just felt like hush money. It was basically like, hey, don't look at all this stuff that our government is doing right now. And I believe that was under the Biden administration.
First one was under Trump. The first couple were.
First one was, yeah. Okay, so, folks, whenever the government says, hey, here's some money, I'm always a little bit concerned, no matter who's in office. And I trust Trump. I trust Elon Musk. It's always concerning to me, and so I do think it's just worth it for us to look at that. I think there is a way that you can look at this, and Shana sort of hinted to this in the first segment, where you're looking at this $5,000 really as what they're calling it is kind of a refund. I'm almost seeing it as Trump saying, hey, listen, this is your money that the previous administration stole from you, and we are simply giving it back to you. If that's what this is, I think I'm all for it. It's just tough to know exactly what this is. And Sam, you're exactly right. When you've got a $2 trillion deficit, personally, I would much rather us get that taken care of first, and I'll deal without the $5,000 extra in my pocket, as much as I would love that. It'd be great to get that debt taken care of first, and then hopefully that could be better for everyone. Not just the however many 80 million tax-paying Americans or so who would receive this. What do you think about that, Sam? Am I off base there?
No, I think there's some truth to that. I mean, really, it's just the question of what's the purpose of this. I guess it's political in nature, right? So the idea is to sell people even further on DOGE, and maybe there's a principled element too, to say, yes, this is your tax money, you should get it back.
Right.
I saw one guy criticizing it. I think he was a conservative, and I understood what he was saying. He said, listen, man, this is kind of like you're deep in credit card debt, and then you manage to get a budget and start getting some savings out there, cutting costs, and then to celebrate, you go to Disneyland. So is that wrong? Maybe not wrong, but is it wise? Probably not.
Absolutely. Yes. Sam, I think that's really spot on there. So this will be interesting, folks. As Shana said earlier in the program, we might not even be in a position to receive this money for some time, but we'll be keeping an eye on this for sure. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the chat as well. I know many of you have already shared those there, and I'd certainly love to get to read some of these for sure. But yeah, it's a really tricky one. I'd love to have $5,000 extra.
I was going to say, to be clear, if I get that $5,000 payback check, no. I'm taking it. I'm cashing that thing. No questions asked.
Exactly. Especially if, like it seems, and I know one of you, I think Nathan had mentioned in the chat there, that it really does seem like this is your money that was stolen from you, in a wrong way by the previous administration. We're giving it back to you. So it's very interesting. I think you can land on both sides of it. It's a fascinating conversation there for sure. Sam, I don't think we have time to get to this Department of Education article. But
unfortunately, no. We have about 1 minute to the ag.
Why don't we save that for after the ag? And quickly here, folks, we'll take a look at what the markets did yesterday. So by midday, investors seemed a little concerned with several consumer discretionary material stocks. So the markets were on track to slip yesterday, but by late afternoon, after the release of the Fed's January meeting minutes, the market seemed to turn. I don't know if it was because of this, but they did turn course nonetheless. By Tuesday's closing bell, of course, the indices finished in the positive. Wednesday's closing bell. Yesterday was Wednesday. Dow Jones finished up 0.6%. The S&P 500 was up a quarter for another record finish, and the NASDAQ barely positive. Pre-markets were down this morning after Walmart's earnings. So Walmart reported earnings. They beat on everything, but there was still some concern there. As they said, profit growth will slow this fiscal year, even as sales continue to climb. Where the markets sit right now, quickly here, is they are all opening in negative territory. So Dow Jones is down about a half, S&P 500 about 0.3, and the NASDAQ slightly down. Here comes Craig Haugaard, and we'll be back with more financial issues.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag update for February 20th. Well, corn made a new high for the move yesterday, but then ran into some resistance based on seemingly friendlier relations between the U.S. and Russia. Better rains in Argentina also pressured the market. As a result, we had May corn 3.5 cents lower at $5.12 per bushel. The soybean complex yesterday was almost a mirror image of Tuesday's trade, with soybeans, soybean meal, and soybean oil all closing lower and coming close to reversing Tuesday's price action. South American weather was bearish as it showed up to 3 inches of rain in key areas of Argentina over the next 10 days. May beans finished the day 7.25 cents lower at $10.4825. Wheat broke its winning streak after reaching a 5-month high earlier this week. We have been trading winter kill concerns, so when the weather forecast matched the snow coverage showed that U.S. wheat area exposure to risk is pretty minimal, we saw profit taking making enter the market. Minneapolis May wheat was 7.5 cents lower at $6.48 1/4. Kansas City dropped by 13 cents to close at $6.26 1/4, and with Chicago 11 1/4 cents lower at $6.06 1/2. Cotton futures slumped but remained within the recent trading range. At the closing bell, we had May futures down 114 points, closing at 67.68. Livestock futures were mixed. April live cattle futures were 75 cents higher at $194.77 1/2 per hundredweight. April feeder cattle were 50 cents lower as they closed out the day at $268.60 per hundred, while April lean hog futures dropped by $3.45, closing at $89.75. Class 3 milk futures had a tough session as they dropped back towards the recent lows. At the closing bell, March futures were down 52 points as we ended the day at 19.08. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Folks, I misattributed a chat comment in the last segment. I said it was Nathan who talked about giving the taxpayers their money back. It was actually Nelson who said that, but Nathan on the chat giving some great comments also. Another banger on the chat here is Brian from Missouri saying, "How about?"
They're all bangers on the chat.
They absolutely are. You guys are fantastic. But Brian's saying, "How about they just quit stealing our money and eliminate the income tax?" Brian, I would love that. Boy, I would love that. And we might get to that in just a moment here talking about that. But yeah, that would solve a lot of these problems, wouldn't it? So yeah, good stuff there. Great to see all of you, so many. I do hope all of you will join us for the conference call today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 Central Time. Again, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 Central Time. You should have received an email alert. It should also be on the alerts page as well that has the phone number. I would highly encourage you to save that phone number in your speed dial. Just title it FISM conference call number or something like that. The access code changes with each and every meeting, so you don't want to save that because it'll be different for the next one. But save that phone number for sure in your phone so you always have it. Again, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time today. Conference call. I hope you'll join us there. All right, Sam, let's get to some more headlines. What we're seeing, more cuts, and I'm all for it. The Department of Education cutting $600 million in DEI training grants. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you got to love to see it, right, Seth?
Absolutely.
So this week, the DOE announced $600 million, as you said, slashed, gone out of here of these ridiculous grants being used to train teachers in left-wing ideas. This includes training materials for critical race theory, dreaded CRT, diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice activism, anti-racism, and, of course, instruction on white privilege and white supremacy. The DOE also says grants included teacher and staff recruiting strategies implicitly and explicitly based on race.
Yeah, it's great, Sam. This is definitely Trump's influence, I think, on the DOE. I know the jury is still out whether the DOE will even exist by the time Trump is done, but tremendous news here. I think this is fantastic. It's important to note here, folks, language matters. So, Sam, what did you say there? We said social justice activism, anti-racism, and then instruction on white privilege and white supremacy. I want to focus.
And to be clear, that's a truncated version of the list. It's much longer, and it gets more ridiculous the more details that you get about what these people were actually being taught.
Absolutely.
And using your money to teach.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Talk about a complete waste of taxpayer money. Absolutely right. When they say anti-racism in particular, I want to focus on that one for just a minute. Anti-racism on the surface, I'm sure sounds nice. Nobody wants to be a racist. Anti-racist sounds good. But that's not actually what these folks mean, what these lefties mean when they say this. They don't mean the opposite of racism. What they mean is state-funded anti-white and often I've found anti-Christian worldview propaganda. Included in that usually is anti-American propaganda, anti-American history. All of that is usually included in what they're really saying here when they say anti-racism. That's
so
really
you should read anti-racism as racism.
That's exactly right. It's actually just
racism.
Taxpayer-funded racism, exactly. And it's with a certain people group as the victims of this. One of the folks, one of the sources of the biggest problems I think in government-funded schools, which is what public schools are, is this leftist push towards anti-biblical beliefs in the public schools. It's my opinion, Sam, the ground is ripe for this. Now's the perfect time to replace these ghastly beliefs with something far better in the public schools. There's an opportunity here, and I have a suggestion. How about the gospel? How about we start putting the gospel into public schools instead? And the great news is that that's what Crossroads is doing. Crossroads Kids Club is doing that. And boy, what a great opportunity now. I really do believe that the Lord brought Crossroads Kids Club to us for such a time as this, as now we're seeing a dismantling of a really godless agenda in public schools makes for fertile ground for the gospel to come in and replace it. And that's what Crossroads does. So if you're interested in learning more about them, you can check them out at reachOurSchools.com. Again, that's reachOurSchools.com, Crossroads Kids Club. Really doing some good things there. All right, Sam, elsewhere, let's talk now about really the other big financial topic as it relates to politics, which is these Trump tariffs. We do have some new ones here. What have you got for us?
Well, it's another day, another tariff, of course, right? It's Donald Trump's favorite thing in the world, at least for right now. Yeah. So he suggested on Tuesday a 25% tariffs on cars, drugs, i.e. medication, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors coming into the United States, with the possibility that those numbers could go even higher in the near future. Here he is explaining some of those details.
Mr. President, have you decided specifically what the auto tariff rate should be?
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
What about semiconductors and pharmaceuticals?
It'll be 25% and higher, and it'll go very substantially higher over a course of a year. But we want to give them time to come in because, as you know, when they come into the United States and they have their plant or factory here, there is no tariff.
There you go. Yep. Right from the horse's mouth. Sometimes I wonder, is he just making up these numbers on the spot? Right. They say, well, what about the car and the semiconductor tariffs? He's thinking, 25% sounds good. Could be more, could be less. I don't know. But let's go with that for right now. Anyway, broken down the nations with the biggest auto exports. So these are the countries that would be affected by this. This would be Mexico, yet again, and also Canada and Japan. Japan would also be affected alongside with India for the pharmaceutical tariffs. And then, of course, course, Taiwan would be the most impacted by the semiconductor tariffs.
Yeah, this is really interesting stuff here, Sam, and I think it's as good a time for us as always to remember that there is a historical perspective here in our country when it comes to tariffs. I think tariffs kind of right away we think, okay, it's a little scary. We're not sure how that might impact the economy. But there was once a time, folks, I mean, think about this. The elites don't want you to know this. There was once a time where our federal government was funded not through income taxes, as Brian mentioned earlier, but through tariffs. Very interesting. Sam, we got a question there from George in the chat. This was from several days ago. I wanted to address it now. What do we have there? George's question.
Well, George knows you're a history buff. He remembers a moment in history very well, it seems, because he says, Seth, audit my history here. Wasn't the federal government funded by collecting import-export duties with the military and infrastructure expense collected from the several states as per their share, namely by the population and etc.?
Yeah, George, you're right on there. That's exactly right. It's well done. For the majority of the nation's history until 1913, which that was when the ratification of the 16th Amendment of the Constitution happened, that made income tax really the law of the land. From that point on, for the most part, the federal government became funded by income taxes. Before that, it was primarily funded, as you said, by collecting import-export duties, or also known as tariffs. It was more funded by that trade there. So listen, I would be all in, as we mentioned with Brian's comment earlier, for a return to our nation's roots in this way. Of course, there's a lot of things that you have to consider getting there, but I think this would just be one more example of a shrinking power of government, shrinking government. I'm always in favor of that. I do think a good government is necessary. I think taxes are necessary. Our Lord Jesus Christ said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, but I don't think they should be large. I don't think they should be invasive. I'm a big fan of small government. I think that works best. And in the history of our country, that's when we've been at our most prosperous. And the flip side is that when the government gains too much power, that tends to be when trouble seems to follow. And so I think this could be an example of that, Sam, for sure.
And of course, the problem with tariffs right now is that they're not being done in isolation. We do have income taxes. We have property taxes. We have all these taxes that the founders couldn't possibly imagine. So you're kind of getting that double whammy right now. So yes, you pay the tariff, which in a way is just an additional sales tax. And then you're still paying all those other taxes. So I think that's why people understandably are much more squeamish about them right now. So I would take that deal, though. If it was get rid of all the other taxes and just pay the tariffs, sign me up right now. Where do I sign? I want that deal. Because it's great. It's all voluntary. That way, all your taxes, if you're also keeping sales taxes, it's just voluntary. You don't have the government intervening into your life to just be taking things from you at random times just because they feel like it. You actually have to go out and buy something in order to contribute to the government coffers, so you do that when you want to.
For sure. And again, folks, we're not saying abolishment of all taxes. We understand the government needs to be funded to provide a strong military, to provide infrastructure, to provide the upholding of the law, different things like that. Those are all good uses for the government to clean up mistakes from previous government administrations, unfortunately, as we're seeing now what the Trump administration is trying to do. So interesting stuff, Sam. I really appreciate your insight on that. Quickly here, before we sign off on the day, the deep state is in a state of panic, Sam, and I, for one, am for it. What have you got there for us here with the deep state?
Yeah, I found this story and I just thought it was kind of funny. So yes, it does appear some members of the government are a little concerned about Donald Trump because Google searches show that terms for wipe hard drive, bleach bit, criminal defense lawyer, and Swiss bank, those searches have been spiking a little bit since Donald Trump first took office. I did a little bit of this research myself just to make sure this is true. And yes, if you go into Google, you type in search by area and go to Washington, D.C., you type in some of these terms, bleach bit, criminal defense lawyer, you will see a spike starting on around January 20th.
Wow.
The chart's a little deceptive because it basically goes from 0 to 100, literally like 100 searches. So you're not getting thousands of these, but still, it does show that people are concerned in the government about these things, and they're thinking, I want to cover my tracks. At least some of them are thinking that way, which is kind of wonderful to see.
Absolutely. It really is, man. I think it's such a good reminder, folks. You know, the fight we often see, the visible fight on Capitol Hill, is Democrats versus Republicans. That's not the real fight. It's really defenders of freedom versus the deep state. I think that really is what it is. We do have enemies within, unfortunately. The question is, how big and extensive is the network? but they are there. I think part of why so many freedom-loving Americans love the Trump administration and what it brings in here is that this administration really is the first true threat, I think, to the deep state oligarchy that we have seen in a really long time. Makes sense they tried to assassinate him twice. They are afraid of him. Folks, our country needs to be stewarded well, and it is up to us, by the grace of God, to be able to steward it well. And so I hope to encourage you to be able to do that. Remember, everything you have, folks, your country, your money, your family, most importantly, the gospel, really it all belongs to God. Let's be good and faithful stewards of all of it. God bless you all. Hope to see you today on the conference call at 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then, God willing.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.